So, Boris Johnson heading to Eastern Europe next week, also speaking with Vladimir Putin in an attempt to diffuse tensions amid fears of a Russian invasion. He'd better hurry up because the mobilisation of Russian troops, as this map shows, and their weaponry along Ukraine's borders continues to increase, now numbering 130,000 military personnel. To give us his analysis of what may develop this coming week, or later, we're joined now by New South Wales Liberal Senator and former Major General Jim Molan. Jim, good to see you. Will Russia invade? Will they attack? Or will they just keep talking?
Chris, I think that they now have the capability to invade the Ukraine, and they have a choice in how they invade the Ukraine. They can invade it through cyber, they can invade it a little bit, or they can take the whole lot of the Ukraine. You mentioned the figures before. They've got about 112,000 ground troops, plus naval and aviation troops, which takes it up to about 130,000. The map that you showed before shows that Russian forces can come at the Ukraine from the Belarus, from the north. It can come from the northeast through Russia, from the east through Russia, and from the southeast through Russia. It can come from the south through Crimea. So, Chris, the capability to invade the Ukraine exists now. The question we've got to ask ourselves is, does Putin have the intent to conduct that invasion? I'd be surprised if he does it during the Winter Olympics. I think China and Russia are working so closely together nowadays that why would he spoil President Xi's performance and his propaganda activities in the Winter Olympics? So I think the talking will go on for a little time. Maybe even Prime Minister Johnson will get a chance to get out of London and get into the Ukraine or get into Russia.
That's interesting. Do the Russians care what kind of stiff economic sanctions Biden applies to them? Is that part of this, or is that not a consideration for Putin?
Oh, I think it's a very big consideration. Russia is, the third largest producer of oil after the US and Saudi. It exports 40% of the gas that is warming Europe and that's running Europe's industry and energy. And there's an opportunity for us if it does get switched off.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very important. There's also an awful lot of money from Russia in the West in various other ways. That might act as a brake in some of the sanctions that might be applied against Russia. But I've got to say, even Biden, who has not impressed so far, is talking a tough game on sanctions, and so are other parts of NATO and other parts of Europe. So I think they can be hurt by the economic sanctions, but Putin, in the end, will decide what he wants to do and will decide what he wants to achieve for the good of Greater Russia.
What did you make of the Russian ambassador's comments on Friday in Canberra?
I thought they were a magnificent performance, Chris. I spent 5 years as a diplomat in Jakarta, and I saw the best of our ambassadors over there, and they performed as equally well in a second language. But there was more substance in what our ambassadors were saying to the Indonesians, God bless them. That was an appalling situation. What he said to us was straight from the Russian playbook. Yep. Straight from the authoritarian nation's playbook, which fundamentally says, as you said, the first thing you do if you're found out by the West is to deny it. The next thing you do is to say it's someone else's fault. At the moment, the Russians are actually saying that an invasion has occurred in the Ukraine, but it's coming from US, UK and Canadian special forces. So that then gives them the ability to conduct whatever actions they want to do. I thought he was appalling. But he was smooth, and that's what ambassadors have got to be.
Yeah, I grant you that. Now, our involvement with Europe, possibly coming up with a way of getting gas to Europe, sounds to me, although it might disrupt what Russia wants to do, it sounds to me like a sensible thing to do with allies. And there are many European nations that are very close to Australia.
Oh, absolutely. And if we get the opportunity to do it and we get the timing to do it, and that's going to be the important thing, suppose out of the blue the invasion occurs, the gas is switched off, there will be restrictions on shipping all over the world in this situation. So our ability to get the gas there is going to be get our gas there is going to be very, very hard. I think the other things we've got to do, Chris, we've got to keep swinging in relation to the United Nations Security Council. You know, I'm not a great believer in the United Nations, but diplomacy is everything, and we've got to keep talking. We should be backing the Brits who have called a meeting of the United Nations Security Council for this coming week. I don't think there's a military role for us there. We've got our own problems in our part of the world. So I think that's just about all that we can do. We should keep talking and ensure that Russia knows that we are not impressed with what they're saying or doing.